Okay. I was like, Hello. I turned off the amp because it was making noise. Just when I was sitting in here by myself. I don't know. Hello. Hi, welcome back. I'm talking to you.
Hi, Linda. We hear you.
Talking to everybody who's listening.
All we need now is the teacher.
Sorry, Don, what?
I say all we need now is the teacher.
Yes, indeed. And we've
Is
still
there
got.
any way of reminding her that we are here? I'm fascinated in trying to read her lips as when there's no sign, but I could see that she's talking.
I'm sorry, Don, what was that? I'm getting pulled in different directions here. You can. Yeah, did you do both of them? And then did you hit like done? You have to change it and then hit done. Yeah. Done. D-O-N-E. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Don. Good to see you.
What'd you put it on? Yeah, it's under System Auto. Hit done. What'd you put it on?
Did y'all have a nice lunch? What did y'all have to eat?
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Made my day.
So what's the secret? What are they?
Oh my gosh, it's this place called Lucky Tree.
Yeah, I know Lucky Tree.
Yeah, and they have these amazing, they call them chocolate chip muffins.
Okay.
But they're like gluten free and made out of like all this healthy stuff.
Okay.
But they are. All right, everyone, we're at 2:04, so Venerable Amy should be coming back soon. Jennifer, I just got your message, so yeah. Everyone online, thanks for waiting patiently.
Is she okay?
Yes, some students took Venerable Amy to lunch and, they probably just got a little delayed. It's okay.
Was it lunch at the temple?
No, they went off-site somewhere. I'm not sure where they went. Venerable Amy's arrived. So the red light is blinking, is that just better? Chris is our AV guru. Thank you. Now it's green. Great. Okay, everybody can hear, right? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. How were your lunchtime conversations? Okay, some people really shaking their heads. Great. Okay. So we come back, and one thing that is helpful to start to incorporate any time in our lives. So there are a lot of gaps in life. So gap is like a transition, like a bardo. We have many bardos happening, and it gets you used to the bigger bardo that's coming when we move out of this body. So we just had a gap. We had a lunch gap. But there's oftentimes even pausing in your mind. You're at a meeting, and you'll notice a gap. And there can be a gap from a meeting that you're in and you're disagreeing with what's happening, what's being decided, what's being said. You have a disagreement with a coworker that you're on a Zoom call with, and you might say it's not going well. Okay. So again, you can have a little pause, and you may notice reactivity in the mind, negative reactivity in the mind. You look at a news story on a device, on your computer. Some people may see it on TV, on your phone or something, and then negative activity arises in the mind. Okay? So again, with basic mindfulness, can I insert a gap, pause? I simply notice what's arising. You can label it, oh, there's negative reactivity. But that's all. There's negative reactivity. That's all. I don't have to get overly involved in it. I don't have to over-elaborate on it. I don't need to have a judgment about myself.
because I'm a human being, doing the best I can. But the nature of that is I'm flawed, which means sometimes I will have negative reactivity arising in my mind. But see, it's a gentle approach. It's just gentle mindfulness. You know, I'm not condoning or condemning what's arising. I'm just observing. I'm gently observing. So I can be at the meeting, watch what's happening, and then observe. Inhalation, exhalation. There's my gap. Okay? So these little mini deaths are happening all the time, if I get used to it. And my little mini death, negative reactivity, okay, let me allow that to pass by, to pass away, right? And now I'm going to engage with the person. Now I'm going to say something. So you can even have in your little gap, in your little mini death of that behavior, letting it pass away. And I might even have tiny little thoughts arise in my mind from just past experiences I don't really want to be that. I don't want more negative reactivity in my mind. Don't really want that judgment. That's not fully who I am, but it's just there, just previous habit of it, that's all. I don't need to get any more involved in that. Gap, inhalation, exhalation, while I rekindle a positive motivation. And you do it quickly. You do it more quickly, but inhalation, exhalation, that's right, this morning, I'm going to show up for the greatest expression of myself, the most enlightened kind of expression I can get as a human being, to help in this situation and to get me to Buddhahood quickly so I can benefit all living beings, including this person who's in the conversation with me, that's challenging me right now, that the grace is showing me my mind. But you can just do it quickly. Become a Buddha to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. Now I'm going to respond to the person across, or if they ask me a question or they need response, and now I come from there. So it can happen really instantaneously the more you practice with it. Understand? Does that sound reasonable, what we're doing? So we come in from lunch, and once again, if you'd like, you can close your eyes for a moment. Rekindle your motivation. And notice the inhalation, the exhalation. Just very simple, and there I reset my balance. And that's all. So again, some of you travel, does anyone have at home when you have guests come, a blow-up bed? Blow-up air mattress? Many people have. Some people I see in airports with their neck cushions that they use to sleep on the plane, and some of them are inflatable. I had an inflatable one once, okay? Well, they deflate, right? I'm curious, how are your blow-up air beds doing? Doing well, okay. Because I'm a touring teacher, sometimes I'm housed on those air beds, and my karma with them is not good. And I often wake up in the morning on the floor. In the middle of the night, you're like, it's deflating. I am not, it's the funniest thing. Several of us laugh about it. So what you do is every time you're resetting the motivation, you're putting a little bit more air and you're blowing up, you're inflating a little bit more. Sometimes those things need a little bit more inflation, and you just want to top it up. That's your motivation. Like suddenly, okay. And that cushion is comfortable. It's more comfortable for you with the motivation. So the little things you can think about as you do that. things you can think about. And then don't forget the self-compassion break exercises we did last night. So I'm just adding techniques and tools, how to rethink something. And, so there's our gap. You have a little lunch break. Just check on the motivation again. You left work, you went to do an errand, you came back. You just came back from home with your groceries. Pause, like you bring the groceries, they're in the kitchen now. Why don't you stop for a moment? Just check your mind. Nice, many little gaps, and then each new thing. And one day it is going to be our Bardo experience of we've left this body, and now I'm in the Bardo, but I've got all that positive energy in my mind automatically activated. So let's have that is what shows up. The motivation is there when some of us have less control over that situation. In that situation, in that Bardo, catapulted uncontrollably by the karmic seeds in our consciousness. That sends us around like that. So see what's possible that you can do. Let's talk about Shine practice. Concentrate. Let's talk a little bit about that meditative technique and practice and how does it work. And I asked you to choose an object. Now I know we just ate, so it's like meditation. Okay, well, we just try a little bit. We'll do short segments. I want to try a little bit of this. Some of you are familiar with this. Again, Wishine is a Tibetan word for calm abiding. Calm abiding. Shamatha in Sanskrit. Shamatha. So calm abiding, building concentration, meditative stabilization, all similar. All similar. And what we're doing is placing our mind on an object, a mental object. So that means your eyes are closed. The only way you would do Shine with open eyes is if you're facing a blank wall. But again, normally the eyes are closed or slightly open. You're not looking at a card of the Buddha, of an image, and doing Shine like that. It has to be from your mind side. It's about your mind learning to hold an object concentratedly, more and more unwaveringly, okay? And then again, sharpening the details of the visualization. And if it's a topic of the philosophy, you're zeroing in with different aspects of that topic, different things you've read, different scriptural references, a quote that may have moved you, something you heard in a teaching, something another student said to you about a teaching, and your life experience. And you're hitting it from every angle, again, with intense focus on that topic. So there's different things you can focus on. But I asked you to bring up a mental image. It's easier to start with some visual image. You bring it to mind. So what I like to do with Shine is we have our motivation for the afternoon. And what's nice is, as you're settling into your own session, imagine you are home in your space, your meditation space or chair. And imagine that you're there. The more you can imagine, I'm practicing doing this at home so that it becomes reasonable and realistic for you. It's nice to have a determination before you start. So just a short line where you say, this is what I'm doing now, and you know you've made the time. So before you even start the session, maybe you had a motivation, inspiring prayer you read. Maybe you just did the 4-line Refuge Bodhicitta prayer. Something that marks, like, this is what I'm doing now. I have 20 minutes, but I just want to focus on this. And then I make a determination in my mind, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to keep my mind on this object for whatever time you set. I'm going to keep my mind there unwaveringly. And then you begin your session. So the first thing you want to do is place your mind on the object, and you close your eyes and you're clear on your object. Make your determination, just quickly, this is what I'm doing. We'll do 5-minute segments. What you want to try to do in the segment, some of you are very familiar with this, I know, right? In the 5-minute segment, you're going to try to keep your mind focused on that object. So again, like you are on a railway track. You have a train here. You're on the track. This is your concentration. This is your shine, and it takes a lot of effort. Okay, so you see my mind kind of, you are holding that object tightly to some degree. Not too tightly, but I'll talk about that in a moment. I'm on the object. The distractions are going to come. I'm on the thread, the object. I'm on the track of the object. That's your shine. The distractions come, I'm on the object. So number one part of your mind, I'm on the object. Second part of your mind, okay, the mind can do a couple things at the same time. We know this when we're driving, right? Have you ever been driving and suddenly you're spaced out about something, but somehow you're able to stay on the road? Right? Some people have accidents where they lose the mindfulness of it, but the mind's able to do a couple things. Second part of your mind is checking, okay, the details of the visualization and trying to sharpen the intensity. So you've got both happening at the same time. And then what you try to build up in Shine sessions, okay, is trying to find the balance. If you hold the object too tightly, okay, it'll pop out and you go off after distraction. It's very common, okay? The other thing is holding the object too loosely, right? Dullness comes in and then I lose the object as well. Fades off and I'm off over a thing. So they do talk about 5 obstacles that arise, antidotes to those obstacles. And so the main ones we know is we have excitement as an obstacle, we have dullness as an obstacle, and we have gross and subtle experiences of that. Gross and subtle experiences of that. Partly with Shine, what happens is these are some other obstacles that come up, is you hear teachings on Shine, or calm abiding, you'd like to develop meditative stabilization. It's certainly going to balance our minds in the face of challenging situations. It benefits everything you do in life to have some sort of meditative stabilization. Okay? So that when you're doing something, number one, you're focused on it and you're mindful, you're there with it. How many of you are multitaskers? So multitaskers, so I used to be the queen of multitasking. I don't do it much anymore. I really don't, because I wasn't doing anything very well. And my mind just felt like split personality, just divided. Just boing, boing, the boomerang. You know. So I think it's one object, maybe manage your time better. This is what I'm doing. You know, set up the management. So if I'm doing emails in general, like if I'm home working on a period of emails, and I might have like, okay, half an hour of emails, I'm returning emails, half an hour. So the phone might be here, but if somebody's calling or I get a bing or text or whatever, right, I can look at it, but it's not my time for the phone. I'm doing emails. So my focus, I'm doing the emails now. So unless it's a doctor's thing or something urgent that you need to get back to somebody, no. Sometimes it's easier to turn the phone over. I have a lot of notifications off, so I don't even hear binging, I don't even know, right? Or put the phone away, have it somewhere else, because this is what I'm doing, because it will distract you. It distracts you from everything. It's amazing, this little box, what we're slaves to. Okay? So that first thing is, you have your thing, this is what you're doing right now, finish that, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. The mind stays focused, balanced, spacious. I find I get much more done now doing it like that. But you experiment. You check how it works for you. So you have the focus, the mindfulness, and then what happens with these distractions is you have gross and subtle excitement is the standard, you know, meaning I'm off after a distraction, something, boom, and usually it's an object of desire. And it could be as simple as, I need to make an appointment to see that friend. So desire, I'm going to get with my friend and we want to do this, we're going to go for that cafe, whatever it is. And the mind starts distracting, and it could just be my plans, and I have to do this, and we're going to do this. And so that's gross excitement. And gross excitement could be pizza, okay? Van Leeuwen ice cream, okay? But pizza. But I mentioned this before in a retreat I was doing at Laudo many years ago. I was there for a few months, and I was doing quite well in the sessions, a little bit more concentrated work. And then suddenly, at one point in the sessions, a pizza started invading my meditation. Vision of a pizza. And it was kind of funny. First it's funny, haha. And it was partly because the diet at that time there was very restrictive, very just like potatoes, and I obviously wasn't getting enough protein, which is common over there in parts of India and Nepal. Pizza, so it came up, and then that was kind of one day, okay? So I was like, okay, no big deal, you just try to do the meditation, and then it was the second day of pizza, came up, third day. Like, it was so distracting after, and then I was really kind of getting down on myself. This is so distracting, and I tried to apply different antidotes. It says, if you read the Shine teachings in the Lamrim, talks specifically about the obstacles and the antidotes. And, I think 8 obstacles is what I meant. And so it was very distracting, and then I realized, okay, so sometimes you just need to go in there to the distraction, then analyze that. So at one point I had my session, I went, okay, what's going on with the pizza? Like, what is the deal? So then I decided, because it looks so good, I would have a meditation and sit down at a table and eat the pizza. Maybe visualize myself getting through a couple pieces of pizza, and the pizza went away. So again, this is also a path of facing what's coming up. There will be trauma that comes up for you a lot. There will be people that you're attached to that come up a lot. There'll be people you're averted to that come up a lot. Regrets that you have will come up a lot that you haven't finished. So if you need to in a meditation, it's skillful. It's not Shine meditation, not formally, but go in there and have a look at why does she keep coming up, or why does this experience keep coming up? And you learn things about yourself. You learn like, oh, because I'm afraid of this, or because I didn't really end that conversation with her on a good note, so I need to take care of that business. Meaning, you go back, you can apologize to people. You can fix things. Sometimes it takes a while, but you can definitely do that work and fix it, and then that thing waltzes off and you don't see it again. And you don't want those things coming up when you're dying. Because they will. What you haven't finished is going to come up. So very helpful to sometimes, so as you start building your meditation practice, some of you are already doing this, you start to realize, what do I need to attend to outside of the Shine sessions more analytically, and then having that stable basis of a meditative mind, I'm able to do that work. I'm able to do that work more skillfully. So that's just gross attachment. Subtle attachment is a little bit harder to see, where I'm on the object, I'm holding my mental object clearly, okay? But there's some agitation to it, okay? The intensity of the details is not so focused, is not so clear. And I may be holding it too tightly and it's about to pop out. There's a subtle distractive energy around it. Then we have gross and subtle dullness. Sleepiness, they could call it. The gross dullness is you're falling asleep in a meditation session. It's very common. It's very common. None of these are a big problem for you. It's just that just recognizing we're all doing this together. We all have the same issues in meditation. Just trying to keep the mind focused. So difficult. So gross dullness, we know we're falling asleep in sessions. Very common. Let's be practical. What they say is, especially with Shine, is if it's continual, you're falling asleep, get up and splash cold water on your face. In this season, you can go outside in the fresh air for a minute, walk around your house one time, get that cold blast of air on your face, it'll wake you up. Have a cup of coffee if you need to. Because not working in the meditation, if you keep falling asleep, that doesn't work. So be practical, like that. Subtle dullness is harder to check. So subtle dullness, you're on the object, no clarification of details at all. No ability to kind of hone in on that. You're holding the object, about to lose it. It's not very clear. Subtle and gross dullness, like that. You also will have an obstacle of where you're over-fixing. Everything's humming along very well in the meditation, but you're trying to fix something. Doesn't need any fixing. So this again takes maturity in your meditation to know that, okay, all systems are go. This is, I'm on my object, details clarifying, great. How long? Let me see if I can sustain that longer. Then you have also an obstacle of, I should be fixing something. There is excitement going on, but I'm allowing myself to follow it. I'm not applying an antidote. That doesn't help. And then the initial obstacle really is you set aside time to do meditation. You want to do the shine, then you get a message on your phone, and then I go, I don't really feel like doing the meditation, I don't really want to do it. Or I'm allowing some bad habits in my focus to manifest where I'm not really concentrating to stay on the object that well. I'm not really following the instructions. So they say if you're interested, and you're really interested in gaining some meditative stabilization, which we then use in analytical meditation on the Lam Rim, to deepen those realizations of the Lam Rim, you need some concentration. But what happens, they say, is if you're very focused on doing it, you could set up your life to do more serious meditation. Set up your space, let householders know that you live with. This is my meditation time. I know people that have gotten to great strides in meditation, living with partners, family, whatever, like that. And if you really want to make time for retreat, in 6 months you could attain shine in a retreat setting, if you have the right conditions. Okay? So some of the conditions, they are mentioned in Lam Rim books, in that section. And one of the main conditions is to have good ethical conduct. Good ethical conduct is considered the first of what's called the 3 higher trainings: ethical conduct, meditative stabilization, wisdom. Okay, again, ethical conduct or good morality, they'll say, meditative stabilization, and wisdom. So the reason ethical conduct supports that is if you're leading a pretty good life, you don't steal from people, you're not cheating people, you're not misrepresenting yourself, you're not lying to people, your mind's calmer in meditation. You're not kind of like, oh, I need to sort that. I don't have too many bad relationships with people because I mucked up with my speech, my body, my mind, you're stable. You get off the ground and you go, well, it's not that I don't make mistakes, but I'm doing the best I can. Feel good about myself. So that's where we need that basis of, I'm okay. I'm good enough. I'm giving it my best shot. And then whatever difficulty faces you, you can manage. You can somewhat manage. Your mind is not a complete mess. We all know people, correct, who are messes. We know people that they struggle. They struggle. We've had many people come to centers, right? I'm sure there's people here where they're like, here she is, our favorite member, right? We used to have some people, we had residential centers, and people would come and stay with us for like month-long retreats. And then our staff would meet, and we'd meet how we're going to support the retreat and all the different systems. And then we had a little joke, and the staff would say, and our most special guest is arriving this afternoon. And that was the key of, so there are some people that really struggle in life. Okay? So number one is first, if you have aversion from them, you don't want to be near them for whatever reason, okay, think about what it's like to be them. They're sometimes not even aware of how they are. And sometimes, unfortunately, they're kind of vomiting all their situation out all over everybody. They can't control their mind. So it's really, and they see how people kind of avoid them, and they're lonely a lot. They're desperate. Nobody's helping them. What is it like to be that? Right? And you can become friends with these people and really help them and find a way that you actually enjoy being around them like that. So there's many people that are struggling like that. But with Shine, so if you have a somewhat level of good morality, that builds like meditative concentration. And then that, of course, is why wisdom is third, because you need Shine to get wisdom, direct perception of emptiness. So to have the good morality. And then they'll even say things in a Shine retreat, if you want to do. To have these conditions is you need to be pretty content and satisfied with what you have. The mind's stable, the mind's relaxed. Think about, are you happy with what you have? Are you pretty content with what you have? We have a lot of stuff in our world system. I mean, with us, I just think about the people here in this class. I think we're doing pretty well. So like we have, food, clothing, shelter, essentials, but they're luxuries in some part of the planet. So we have that and we take it for granted, And then sometimes I do know many of my friends with their homes and they're always tweaking something. If I just had the little, we just wanted to get the table that fit the corner with the light, and I saw one with lights, and they spend hours researching. And then they get the thing, it's not quite right, but it's, well, next year we're going to get the one with the other wood. I saw one wasn't available, and then but now the price went up. But I think I'm I listen to them, and I'm like, because they wanted the green tile, but that green tile's a little lighter shade than the tile they wanted because it clashes with the, and I'm like, okay, can't take that green tile with you, right? We were talking this morning, Elise and I were just talking about how quickly, I was telling you, there's a cemetery near where my brother lives where some of my grandparents are buried. And some years ago, I was in there with my father. We were walking around and visiting some of my grandparents' graves, and then my father took me to this other area, showed me these stones. There were relatives on my father's side. I had no idea they were in that cemetery. I would never have known that. So the thing is, I don't have any kids, but my brother and sister's kids don't know about those relatives there in that cemetery. So one generation, nobody will know who those people are. Those people who had active, busy, deep lives, rich lives, a lot of drama, like everyone else, and nobody knows who they are now. None of it matters. None of it matters. Gone. So think about that investment of lessening the desire of needing, and then can you be satisfied with what you have and having less desires in your mind? Like that. So it's interesting, I like to do experiments. Like, I'm not a big shopper, and fortunately, this is my outfit. And I'm very happy to just be able to wear this every day and variations on it, or you go to a store and you just need maroon, just go to burgundy. I remember I was in one store and the woman's showing me, and I just went, well, I just wear burgundy. So none of these, I said, and there was only one burgundy jacket, so I'm like, I'll look at that. Simplifies things, but then I joke with myself because then, put me in a camping store or a bookstore. Those are my weaknesses, right? And sometimes I just joke with myself because I'm like, how many more little bags do you need? It's like, done. So can you simplify? Can I simplify? And I've had ways where I'm like, I don't need it. It's done, enough. So that helps to set up less desires, less distraction. They even say if you're at a retreat center, you want to be at a safe, healthy place so there's not wild animals eating you, not people threatening guns, raping you, whatever, and a place conducive where they can either serve you food, that they're happy with what you're doing, like that, and conducive, and sometimes they'll say at the confluence of two rivers or creeks, a little bit, and Vajrapani Institute is like that. There's a couple water things, creeks that go by there. And you can set yourself up, or you can do it home, as long as you can set up, lessen the distractions like that. But at least we do a little bit, try to do a little bit in our daily practice, okay? So let's try. Let's try some. So you're clear, you've got your object in mind. Pick a mental, visual object. Choose an object. Again, it's images of the Buddha in this room. Again, I said you can pick an apple, whatever is easy for you. You're going to stay. We're going to do 3 5-minute segments, and I want you to stay with the same object for all 3 segments. And again, don't obsess about your object. It doesn't matter. But you're going to slowly find your good position. So in a chair, have your feet straight down or on a cushion, body balanced. And again, check. Head is slightly forward. Shoulders are relaxed. Lips are lightly together. Teeth can be slightly opened. You could even curl the tongue to touch the upper palate in the mouth behind the front teeth. Eyes are lightly closed. Focus towards the tip of the nose. And let's first start, again, scanning relaxation from the top of your head, working down through the body, releasing the tension, all the way down and out through your feet and toes. And allowing that normal breath, natural breath to move through your system. So please get clear on your object and bring it to mind. And think for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to try my best to keep my mind focused on this object without my mind wandering. Please begin. Please relax and open your eyes and take your mind off the object for a moment. You just open your eyes 10, 20 seconds, look around the room. Another segment. Once again, close your eyes and bring up your object. Begin to learn and feel a little bit, the more you do meditation, is when I need to hold the object a little more snugly, because I'm about to lose it, or when I need to back off and relax a little bit more. You just slowly learn that through doing more and more of this meditation. So let's bring the object to mind, following those tracks of your concentration on the object. 5 more minutes, please begin. and relax. Just open your mind, open your eyes, take your mind off the object for a moment. We'll do one more segment. So close your eyes, get clear on your object. 5 more minutes. Keeping the mind focused there on the object and checking, sharpening the details of the visualization as best as you can. Please begin. and relax. Some concentration. It's helpful if you really focus the mind to try. Now, some sessions won't go as well as others. And sometimes if you just have the consistency to sit at the same time every day, but the thing is, if you're retired or you work at home and you have the luxury to try different times of the day, you might find there's a better time that works for you, that's not 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. It could be 11 in the morning, it could be 4 in the afternoon. So experiment with times, but again, until the mind is better and better trained, you may find one day sessions going along swimmingly well, very nice, some concentration. Next day, very nice, and the day after that, not good. That's how it is with the mind. So you just don't give up. You just keep going. Just keep going. Make the consistency. And it will start layering that calm in the mind, a little bit more stability in the mind. Okay? But this isn't an easy, quick path. So you have to have the stamina to keep going and showing up for your mind regardless. And then your standard life roller coaster is going to unfurl. And so sometimes there's going to be wonderful times of life for you where you're going along really well. And then there's other challenges like that, you know. And I just got, you know, a message at lunch, a student I've known for many years, and in her late stage cancer now. So she's kind of like, she wrote this message like saying goodbye to me, like, okay, I just want to, you know, so I'm going to contact her another time, but suddenly you don't know what presents, and that's a whole other stage. So here she is now really actively in her face, looking at life, looking at death, looking at her mind, looking at what's ready, what's not ready, and she has limited time in this form, and right now we might have more time. So this is the time to do it. No more wasting time, we have to get to it. So again, just the patience. Now you might have a good experience with Shine, but keep with short segments, short sessions, but you might feel comfortable with 10 minutes. And you could have a little alarm clock. You could set a chime on your phone so at 10 minutes, bing, it rings. Like that. We have those devices, easy to do things like that. And so you make your time, make your segments as best as you can. But again, if you're new to it, keep it shorter and keep your overall meditation session shorter and fresh so that you're happy to see your seat. You don't want to be where long pines, you know, and then you can't really, you don't want to sit and you never sit anymore. And the shawl sits there and then gathers dust and you never use it. Like that. So keep it short and fresh, and you can have many times a day, you check in. You're just getting together with yourself. How's my mind? And maybe there's some days it's not going well and you feel you got a sore throat and it's not, you know, so maybe, but you just still sit there. You can still sit in that place where you build up some energy there, and maybe all I have time is to just read this little poem I found I liked. That's all. I can't really do much today, I don't feel well. Okay, good enough. But you still have some consistency of that space. I would have things, I told you this story many times, but I was working when I lived in San Francisco for a while, and I just started meditating. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had this little loft over the bed, but I'd come home from this kind of stressful job, and maybe I was going to go out with some friends that evening, but you have that little period of time when you get home from work and what you're doing. Some people exercise at that time, they go out for a walk, or you know, people do other catch-up work, and now we have phones, so that takes up time to do stuff with the phone. But I would come home and I'd set up this little, I didn't know what I was doing, and I crawl into the loft, and I had a little cushion and shawl, and so then I'd sit there and decompress of what was going on at work that day, things that didn't go well. You know, I'd find like agitation and this, and I was obsessing about this guy, that I had to do this job, and he was very intense, and I was worried about working with him, and just let those thoughts roll, spin out, bubbles in the wind, and let them go. And just 5 or 10 minutes, that, and I kept trying to focus on the breath, and my mind would wander off, and I'm back in the breath. But after 5 or 10 minutes, I felt more relaxed, calmer. The things were still there, still was going to have to work with him, but less, you know, and then finally I could say, then I could do a little analysis. Okay, so I'm really aware of what's wrong with him. That was easy, okay? Was there any other dimension of him other than that? Because all my mind could see was every bad quality of him that I was over-exaggerating as well. That's just the nature of aversion. That's how it works. So I kind of was very clear on that, and then I went, all right, wait a minute. Seems to be some people in the office that like him. What's that about? And then you analyze. And I suddenly had a list of 5 things that were positive. So that's how we really create a different reality. There's 5 things that are positive, 5 benefits of this. So that I told myself, when I go in tomorrow, have the meeting with him, let me try a little bit more to try to focus on the positive things that I just brought up now. Let me go over the positive things again in my meditation. I'd like that, and really think about that, right? And then do it again, so that when I went in the next day, they came up a little more readily. They were the bubbles that came up. He's really good at his job. He's smart. He's very skillful in meetings. You know, he's very good to the people that work for him. He's a good manager. He's like, those are good qualities. And I tried to see that. And then I could also, you know, genuinely comment productively to him about that. Give him a compliment, but genuinely compliment. And he liked that. No, we liked that, but then suddenly that's positive connection he has with me. Oh, I get positive feedback from her. So then you're more drawn to those people. You feel safer with those people. You feel friendly. That's what friends do. We give each other positive feedback. Really good friends also give you constructive criticism. But initially when we're meeting people, it's positive feedback. That's how we connect with each other, the people that we like. So then we did that, genuine. I was very calm, and I was kind of left the meeting, and I was like, that was good. I feel good about that. Good first interaction with him. And then I'd see him in the office, and he was positive when he'd see me because he got positive feedback from me. So he liked seeing me. Other people in the office I could see he didn't like. Something had happened, and those people would tell me they had a fight with him, and they, you know, but I was gonna. So again, we have to rebalance of what's really more accurate. Because he wasn't terrible things. He wasn't that person. That wasn't the whole picture. That was aversion. That was my anger, hatred, aversion operating. That's what it tells you. Everything is bad and negative. This person's awful. It's not the whole story. It's not the whole story. I remember somehow, at one point, one Dharma, a long time ago, Saddam Hussein, remember him? Okay. So he was kind of the big bad evil at one point that was operating. There's always somebody. So always somebody on planet Earth, right? It was him at one point, and then we were working with him, and then whatever, and they created this, and then they killed him, or whatever happened. But I used to use him in meditation, and I used to think about, and they had stories about him and his grandchildren, and he had a family. You never see these people with families, but he had a family. And I used to think about how he was with his grandchildren. You know, like what that experience would be like, and what their interaction with him. Now, I don't know what that was like, but I bet it was different than, you know, his experience with some political leaders at the time, right? So it gives you a whole picture of a different reality, that I don't have to be so averted that the person's evil and that's all they are, that's all they are. And some of them certainly manifest that way on our planet, right? It really seems like, but again, be skillful about where are you getting your information from? Right? When I worked at that magazine, whoa, sorry, the cardinal had a little tussle there over the bird feeder I see with somebody else. Goodness. You can see because it's red. Male cardinals are like, they're really out there with those colors. They really. But again, be skillful. When I worked at this magazine, it was all about investigative journalism. So it was really taught me about where do you get your information from. So check your source of where, and some people will tell me some story, oh, did you hear that? And I'm like, where did you read that? Where did you get that from? So there's a lot of different news sources that give you info, a lot of different online, social media, whatever the stuff is. Be very careful. And they give you their slant, and there's all about sensation, so it needs to be negative news. There's a lot of positive news in the world, just doesn't get airtime. And it's the same with us. Our negative stuff we're very aware of, but the good stuff we do, think, say, we don't pay much attention. Just kind of how our world is patterned, like that. Okay, so we need some, I want to bring some other teachings in here that I thought would be helpful. I have a whole separate self-compassion course, but what I thought would be very useful right now, I think you're all familiar with Lojong, okay? Lo is mind in Tibetan, Zhong, training the mind. This is all mind training. That's what we're talking about. So we're working with mindfulness, we're working with self-compassion techniques, meditation techniques, but to deal with the challenging circumstances of the time. That's what most people are very interested in that now. Lojong is Lojong is the most skillful, and it's a little bit more intermediate level. But this is so appropriate right now for what we're talking about. Okay, so let me just, here we go. This is from a special Lojong text that has been taught to me that isn't the normal 8 verses of mind training you've heard of, Geshe Langri Tangpa, or 7 verses Geshe of thought transformation, Geshe Chikawa. This is a unique kind of, where is my, here it is. This was a more obscure kind of, and it's called instruction, okay, on turning suffering and happiness into the path to enlightenment. Instruction on turning suffering and happiness into the path. But I want to look at suffering. Let me find my better copy of this. Here it is. Okay. And this is by Jigme Tempe Nima, who lived 1865 to 1926, turning suffering and happiness into enlightenment. And what they do is they do it by means, he talks by means of relative truth, our everyday life, and ultimate truth in accordance to emptiness, which obviously sorts everything and solves everything to some degree, okay? But really, let's look at suffering, accepting suffering, okay? And here it says, as the path to enlightenment. We don't want suffering. We don't want it anywhere near us, but it's gonna come in samsara. It's there all the time. Okay? And it comes, and if we're not balanced and we're not ready to look at it, and my mind is a mess, we don't deal with it very well. Then we don't deal with others well, and then I turn in on myself and crumble and get very down on myself. Sorry, do we go to 4 or 4:30? 4, okay. Do we need a break? Or how's people doing? Okay, we have about 40 minutes, so we'll just go on. Okay. Some of my favorite teachings, okay? So I want to look at how do I accept suffering by means of relative truth? Suffering is going to come. How are you going to deal with it? You have challenges outside, things you see right now in the world that don't make sense to you, that you don't agree with at all, okay? And it's always nice how they always start with a homage to one of the great Buddhas. Here it's homage to Arya Avalokiteshvara by the recollection of his qualities, which were celebrated thus. And then it says, he who will ever be made happy by the happiness of others, and who feels extreme distress when suffering comes to them, having fully attained the quality of great compassion, he will renounce his own happiness and sufferings. And then he says, I'm going to write a partial instruction on acceptance of happiness and suffering as the path. It's the most precious teaching in the world and a necessary tool for the holy life. Okay? So just looking at relative truth, he gives you a variety of examples of things that we can use. Find this really... So, and what happens is when we hear the word suffering, when you experience pain to some degree, and sometimes they have this saying in our culture that the pain shows up, the suffering is optional. Okay? So I do know people in chronic pain, people that have had are experiencing very serious illnesses right now. Some of them complain all the time. Some of them you hear about it a lot, what they're going through. Now it's different if it's a close friend and they want to express what's happening. You ask them, tell me what's going on. But some people are just complainers. And then there's some people I know, you don't even know they're sick. And they're really sick. And they're bright, and they're thinking about others all the time. They're trying to help people. This is one of the people I knew when they're getting their chemo, and they're really focused on the other people getting their chemo. And so it does give you some messages of, can I accept it? Now, some of this is even, and here it says, reject the state of mind exclusively desiring not to have suffering. Reject that mind. What happens is we have a mind now that says, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to suffer. Okay, that creates fear for us, creates tension, creates anxiety. I don't want to suffer, I don't want to have, so anytime we're also grasping onto a certain thing, when I retire, I want to have when my kid goes off to college, then I want to, and there's always a grasping, a need, a desire, a want. Right, and so you're molding and forming, and all that creates anxiety. So it doesn't mean you don't make plans. Make them reasonably, but can I make them kind of with the hands back here? Like, if it happens, it happens. I'm going to make the plans for it to happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm okay. Much less anxiety for you, okay? So again, if I'm having a mind, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to, I don't want that to happen, it creates a lot of tension. And the mind, a lot of distraction, a lot of static in the mind, okay? And so here's some initial things that we want to look at. And he goes on to say, ascertain again and again the uselessness, the harmfulness of considering suffering as something unfavorable. This is new. That's why Lojong is so radical. You say suffering to people, they go, I don't want that. Well, I don't even want to look at it like something good in there. You kidding me? You crazy? Okay? But be aware of how much anxiety you experience from having aversion to suffering. Think about that tonight. Okay? How much anxiety you experience by not wanting to suffer. Right? Train yourself to develop great courage and experience powerfully the thought that from now on, whatever suffering comes, I'm not going to be anxious. There's some mind training. Whatever suffering comes, I'm not going to obsess about it. I'm not going to be anxious. I'm not going to vomit it out on everybody else around me of how freaked out I am. So again, we can't force ourselves to be a certain way. There are some people that are highly strung. They're very neurotic. They're very nervous. Okay? This is training, how to undo that. But it's slowly. You have to do it slowly. Step by step is just you're first noticing the mind of neurosis. There's your mindfulness. Wow. And then I notice the mindfulness is, I'm more like this when this situation occurs. I get very nervous when this person is around. I get very nervous when the bank account is at that number. So just start to notice those things. You're just simply observing that. Okay? And then the second step is there something you need to take action with, like the bank account or the job or the meeting? If I'm nervous about presenting this new thing at the meeting, my presentation, my report, my department, my budget, then make sure you're prepared. Doesn't that make sense? All you can do is prepare your best. You let go. Then whatever happens is your karma unfolding. Boss didn't like it, they didn't like it, but I know I did my best. I know I had everything presented. What do you have to worry about? What do you have to worry about? So try to train your mind as I did everything. There's a worrier in my life I'm very close with, somebody that so some people understand too, karmically, we're wired in a certain way. Okay? Some people came into this world as worriers, correct? Right? Some of you know people that, okay, my nephew, he's in his 30s now. He worried at 2 years old. Came in from another life. He had nothing to worry about. Okay, but then you can see karmic seeds. It's just his makeup. We all have different makeups. I know people that there's always a little bit of an edge around them, a little bit angry. I know people that are super attached to people and things, just all about that. I know people that worry. I know people that nothing bothers them. They're unflappable. Just we're all wired differently. That's okay. But what's helpful for you is to understand your mind and how you're wired, and understand what are your biggest delusions. Go after those first. When I say delusion, it's an imbalance in your mind. And what I mean by that, again, we had the circling of the 3 poisons. Ignorance, confusion, right? Anger, hatred, it's the same. Desire, attachment. Those are the 3 poisons. So those operate for most of us, but you might go, well, I have more attachment. Then know that about yourself. Know that about yourself. Then we have additional delusions, root delusions, pride, doubt, and wrong view. Those are the 6 root delusions. The 3 poisons and pride, doubt, and wrong view. Okay, and then they molt into a whole variety of negative mind states. Jealousy, forgetfulness, laziness, depression, anxiety. You get the idea, right? So there's many more. So understand, I kind of have these are my big 2. We have all of them, but usually there's some that are dominant. Figure out the antidotes, go after those, like that. Slowly you work on it. I remember my nephew, I've told this story before. This is so cute. So he was 1 or 2. No, he could start to read. He was like 2.5, almost 3. He learned to read a little bit. And my sister, they were living in New York at the time. My sister had a friend who was a writer who got an article into a teen girls magazine. Do you remember this story? Anyway, a teen girls magazine. So my sister bought the magazine many years ago to support her friend and read the article, read the story. And it was sitting in the living room. She was making dinner. He picks it up. And the kid, he's paging through the magazine. It's like 3 years old. And he gets to a page, and she called me to tell me a story. He runs into the kitchen, and he said, and he says to her, desperate, I need this, holding the magazine, I need this. What is it? He said to her, what is this? I need it. Because what he could read in the magazine, big words, big print, worry-free is what it said. He could read that, worry-free. So he's like, great. He already knew he was a worrier at that age. Where does it come from? Has to come from past life, imprints in the consciousness. Where else? His parents weren't worried. Nothing to worry about when you're 3. What could you worry about? He went to a daycare. He played with his friends, and there was no problem there in his world system that we could see. Worry-free, runs into my sister, and then my sister said, she looked at the ad. She had to break it to him. It was an ad for OB tampons. So she had to break it to him and she looked at it and she said, she goes, oh my God. And so she said, I had to tell him that this is something for girls. And she said he was so disappointed. He was so disappointed. He said, well, is there something for boys? Is there a worry-free thing for boys? So again, you look at these things, just how people are wired. The worrying and things. So again, if you know that's your thing and you worry, you can only take care of so much, because samsara sucks. Samsara, right now we have stuff in our world, but again, decrease the amount of what you're looking at online or watching, what kind of films, videos, streaming, books you read, magazines, things you're looking at that make you worry more. So I have a very close friend. She's a nun and a longtime practitioner. And I came out of retreat after a few months, and I knew it was right around the election. I knew what was going on. I checked in a little bit, and then I finally got a message from her. She can't sleep. She's completely freaked out, on and on and on and on because of what she's reading in the news and what's happening. And, you know, and I know that she's been living with someone who watches TV a lot, and they watch the news. And I said, turn the TV off. Like, why are you watching that? And it hadn't really presented itself to her. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, so lessen those things. Like, I do look at the news from time to time on my phone generally. And I travel, so I want to know if I'm going to a country, I want to know a little bit. But if I'm reading a news story and it disturbs my mind, I don't read it anymore. I don't read it anymore. So be skillful with your mind. Please be skillful. We have to be more balanced. Why? So that I can work on my path to benefit all living beings, to get to a place where I can benefit all living beings. That's in the center of my universe. I try to keep that in the center of my universe. That's my buoyant cushion. Every day, every moment. And sometimes it gets deflated. And I start sinking and going, oh, you know, I have moments. And then I you know, lessen the thing, do my techniques, pull out, get your Dharma toolbox, and you start reaching for what tools, techniques that I need to do, and then I get to blow up that air mattress a little bit more. And up in the ride, and off I go. We do the best we can. It's definitely not going to be helpful in samsara. I mean, we know samsara's nature. So think about, so he goes on about developing the great courage and experience powerfully the thought that from now on, whatever suffering comes, I won't be anxious. A little bit of mind training in my mind. Why not use that as a mantra? I won't be anxious. I won't be anxious. I won't be anxious. I know sometimes we say to people who worry, don't worry. It's like useless. They're like, oh, you know, oh, don't worry. You know, but if I'm really analyzing it, I can have a little mantra. One year I was running the center in California. It was a lot of anxiety, a lot of responsibility. And I just felt like I needed to control everything, that I could control everything and everyone, you know. Boy, is that banging your head against a brick wall, right? What can you control? Yeah, myself, just your mind. And we're not even doing a great job with that, right? But that's the only thing you can control. So the rest of it, just let it go. You can't control your mother, no. You cannot control your kid. Cannot control your spouse, sorry. You can't. So why try? It's one thing to suggest something, like, hey, what if we, that's one thing, but then let go. Then let go, right, Elise? Right? She turned to David like, hi, hon. You know, right? But again, so it's so much more relaxing, and it's hard enough for me to deal with my mind, get my mind together. I have a lot of work to do there, so I can't bother about, but I spent this year, so I thought I could control everything at the center, and so then I had a year of a mantra. This was my mantra, and it really worked. Let go, let go, let go, let go. I'd be at a meeting, and I could see that, you know, and I'd be like, in the back of my mind, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. So it's some of this thing, I will not be anxious. I will not be anxious. You try, okay? And he goes on, the great harm of considering suffering, this is the other thing we want to let go of the great harm of considering suffering as something unfavorable. That's how we view it now. What if I let go of that thought? Suffering can be useful. Okay, suffering can be useful. So you see these things spinning around outside of you in the world or in your world. Okay, let's look at some ways to deal with it. Suffering is a support. Think of this, of training your mind, and I would say, literally, he says, in turning away from samsara. So how about building renunciation in your mind? Suffering's so useful for that. You see samsara's nature. So you might say there's a political situation going on. It's not just in the States, it's in the world. It's in the world. And you go, oh, and people say, wow, this is like Nazi Germany, and this is like this, and look what's happening in Gaza, and the Ukraine war, and, right? There's been many wars on the planet, long before us, long before we were in this current manifestation, okay? So this is samsara's nature. This is samsara's nature. Somehow my mind created a situation to come back to a planet that has these really unfortunate, hostile situations. Okay? And there's Kadampa Center, this beautiful manifestation. So there's also that in my world system that my mind created. Okay? But if I just want to look at the suffering, and we will see the suffering at times, let it remind me, this is samsara. This is samsara. So what a lot of people in our condition do, because we have a nicer looking ride in samsara. We see cardinals out the window, or we just have food, clothing, shelter, reasonable ease of physical life, nice places to live, nice things. So we have a little bit of a mistaken notion that we maybe think that there's happiness here. We have happiness at times. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. We have comfort. We have a lot of comfort. We have a lot of comfort. And what the comfort does is it kind of glosses over a little bit samsara's nature. We don't really see it. So when the suffering comes, then you can say, oh, right, I forgot. But this is the realm I'm living in. It's broken. So let it, instead of freaking out about it, getting anxious, spinning out around it, can I take it back into my practice and say, this isn't anything surprising. Samsara's nature is like this, right? Let me step up my practice a little bit, or this week I'm really going to need something a little bit more, and let me at least maintain some rich consistency in my practice, right? And let me see, can I let go of some stuff that's preventing me from doing more practice, or preventing me from signing up for the course I can do online, or maybe I'll look into that retreat and see what I need to do to get myself there. Like, you have a retreat coming up here, White Tara retreat. Fantastic, beautiful retreat like that. So again, those little things, use it. Renunciation, again, is giving up your suffering on a fundamental basis. Giving up your suffering. Having some compassion for yourself is really the start of it, where you're suffering and you go, I can't suffer like that anymore. It's enough. You suffer because my mind's not together, you say. So what do you need to do to get your mind together? Well, you need to meditate. And if you like this path and you're in this room, you go, well, maybe I should check out one of the study programs. So start with an easy study program, a little short thing. Start with that and give that a taste. And then they recommend a book. We send out all these things. You can look at one, look at the Shakyamuni Buddha practice. What's that involved? Right? How do I do that? You look at that, go through that. When you have questions, write down the questions. Then check with a teacher, you can get them answered. Then it deepens your practice. And you go, I have this now. I know how to do this practice. Then you can show somebody else the practice. And then you do that for a while and you go, I think I'm good. I want a deeper Guru Yoga practice. Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. It's not that much more advanced. It's a longer 7-limb prayer, that's all. But you fit that in, some different mantras, fantastic. It's actually that mantra is one of our Nundro practices. Deepens your experience of your own inner wisdom. Like that, your own inner wisdom. And really, if you want to find a teacher, helping you find a teacher, finding an authentic teacher. Like that. So those are these stages. So use the suffering like that as the thought of turning away from samsara. Okay? Here's another one. Suffering is a support of training in taking refuge. How's your refuge? How's your refuge? So for instance, when you have difficulties in your life, I'm just curious, when you have difficulties, we have small ones and we have big ones. What do you do? I'm just curious. What do you do? What are your coping mechanisms? Anybody online?
I feel like I usually
David.
never mind.
Go ahead, Sebastian. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, I usually try to find something in the Dharma, whether that's like talking with my teacher or just trying to find something that something that I already have. But it usually helps. There's always something in there to address exactly what's going on for me at that time.
Yep, a great coping mechanism. Thank you. You got the sun in your eyes. Where are you located?
I'm at Haw River State Park, so and there's the
And
wind.
where is that?
Brown Summit.
No, but what? North Carolina.
It's
Yeah,
in North
no, just
Carolina,
wondering
yeah.
what. Yeah, North Carolina. Very nice.
But I'm originally from Philadelphia, so I was in North Philadelphia for like 4 years at Temple.
Oh, you were Temple.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
I think you came to my center before. Lama Losong is like my primary teacher.
Yes, yes. I'm going to be there March 3rd, I think, for Sunday morning. Yes.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Fantastic. That's great. So very nice. Thank you, Sebastian. You can reach for Dharma things, and is that what everybody does when you're struggling? Okay, I've got some nods and I've got some no. What else do we do? Let's be honest. What else do we do?
Well, I just wanted to say, I've
David.
been suffering from a problem for several months, so I turned to GPT, and looked up some answers.
Okay, AI to get answers to stuff. Okay, that can be useful for certain things. That can be useful for certain things. You got a certain situation, so he's going to find a quicker resolution to find something to do. Okay, thank you. What's happening here? You weren't shaking your head like this. What's your name? Kyle.
I have some like escape behaviors. Watch TV, turn on a show, and like not think about the thing that's bothering me.
Yep. Yeah, how many people do that? Let's be honest. How many people stream video? Yeah, come on. Stream videos, we go to the phone, you do that mindless, whatever you're doing that, I was just laughing, visiting my sister. She lives in England, and her husband, my brother-in-law, and it was just the three of us at home for a few days, and so what I noticed is we were out, we went for a walk, and then my sister and I were cooking, and then we had another activity, and there was something else, and then I was doing my practice, and there's a lot of activities through the day, even if you're on a holiday time, like around the holidays. And then I noticed at some point the three of us would congregate. They have a small living room. We'd sit in the living room. And then it was phone time for the three of us. Like we had to catch up on things on the phone. Like you have this time where you need to kind of deal with things on the phone that are happening. And so we kind of laughed and I said, I guess, and I looked around the room and I said, I guess it's phone time now. We're doing phone time. But again, thank you, because a lot of people reach for these things. Now, granted, you do need breaks. So, it's hard for us at our levels to do Dharma 24 hours a day. That's often not possible for people. So we do need some breaks, but how long do those breaks go on? And then how much does your mind get habituated with some of those other things you do, that's what you start taking refuge and reaching for when you have a problem, is always that thing, instead of reaching for, like Sebastian was saying, the Dharma practice. The Dharma practice. So just be skillful to that, where's my refuge? So how many people have done a refuge course or taken refuge in Buddhism? Right? Okay, fantastic. So most people. So in the refuge course, and some people do that course over because they haven't really thoroughly gone through the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Okay, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. There's incredible virtuous qualities in them that help inspire you. And you really need to analyze a little bit. So Buddhist qualities, like what's it like to be somebody that has no fears? Like we have a lot of people have fear now, and that's what makes them angry. That's what makes them angry. And under fear is often loss of control. So again, if you're aware that I can only control my mind, I'm doing the best I can, samsara may come up and bite me, and some negative karma may ripen, and something bad might happen to me, but I'm doing all I can do about it. I'm working on my Dharma practice. So then you don't need to fear. But in enlightened consciousness, because they know everything, they have no fear. So that's pretty cool. What would that be like? In that, you have no fear. No fear. And every positive quality, first of all, everyone in this room and on Zoom, you have many positive qualities. You have many positive qualities. You may not reflect on that a lot, and I'm asking you to reflect on it in a balanced way, not an egomaniacal way again, but a balanced way. You have many good qualities, okay? But as a Buddha, wisdom, compassion, loving kindness, all those positive qualities are fully manifest every moment. You live in that space. You live in that space all the time, and as a result, you're infinitely blissful, regardless of what goes on around you. Now, you see the suffering that we experience. Remember, we had some discussions about the way Lama Zopa Rinpoche encountered the world versus the way we encountered the world. So it's like Rinpoche would understand how you suffering and how you suffer and see it, but he didn't live in that realm. He didn't experience the same thing. But of course he had huge compassion because he could see what a muck we make of things. But an enormous compassion because he understood that we didn't understand. That's why we suffered. That's why we suffer. So if you want to take a person like Putin, and you want to take a person like Netanyahu, and you want to take a person like Trump, and you want to name any other person like that many people right now are struggling with, right? Some people might think they're great, right? But the people are struggling with, right? And sometimes a lot of it, and one person I look at is like, so Putin had this idea that he could just invade Ukraine and take it over. I mean, he did that with Crimea Peninsula, right? So he wants the USSR, again, he wants the satellites to all be part of his domain, okay? Power, greed, and it all comes from a lack of understanding. And it all comes from misknowing and a big capital M and a big capital KNOW of not having a direct perception of emptiness. That's where it comes from, ignorance. And I have the same ignorance. I have the same. Now, I don't run a country and think that I can take over, I'm going to take over Kadampa Center and make it the Amy Miller Center, right? But again, it comes from the same ignorance, the same misknowing. I have in my mind, he has in my mind, many sentient beings on the planet have that in their mind, okay? So when certain people, and there's certain people that you love that make mistakes, and sometimes they make what you might call and label a stupid mistake. Why did he do that? My dear brother, he's a wonderful guy who's always helping others. Always helping others. He's volunteered for 45 years for our local ambulance service. It's the only volunteer ambulance service left in our county. And he's really just the main support for it at this point. And all these years, he must have saved tons of people's lives. He's very skilled. And he's quite humble about it in many ways. And he's older now, right? So he had some chest pain one night, some heart thing, and he wouldn't leave his shift. He's lifting stretchers, getting other people to the hospital with chest pain, right? You're like, and then decides, and it goes on for like 10 hours, right? And then he decides and finishes his shift, and he's going to go home and see if he's going to go to sleep, and if he wakes up in the morning, then he'll ask his wife to take him to the hospital. So then he's telling me all this, right? And he's a smart guy too. It's not like but he drives home, and people, we've all done some stupid things. We've all, So he drives home, and then he's telling me the story, and this is something he'd say to me, and I looked at him and I said, "So what were you thinking? You drive home you could injure people. You have a heart attack, and then you crash your car into somebody, and what were you thinking?" And he's like, "I wasn't." I'm like, why do you do that? So we make stupid mistakes like that. And unfortunately, it worked out. And he wasn't having a heart attack, and he's good now. But we all do stuff. We all do stupid stuff. Okay, now, we don't maybe do it on a world level like that. But we all do it. And when it's somebody that you like and somebody you love and they do it, and it's kind of endearing, and you go, oh, God, like with my brother, it was just like, whatever, and you forgive, and you kind of make a joke with him, and, but also the compassion that I don't want to, yell at him and make him angry and be like, So why not Putin? Why not these people? Now, they seem to create incredible horror and death and destruction in parts of the world like that. So it's harder for us to do it, but it comes from the same misknowing and confusion. They just have karma to have a bigger ego, to have more power in the world, to be running countries that can create, so they have less ability to be careful and skillful with less harm. So think of the mess they're making for their own consciousness, for the future. How can you not have compassion? How can we not grow compassion? If I want to grow my hatred at them, my hatred, my fear, my disrespect, You know, all these things I kind of see as negative, right? That only creates a problem in here for me. They don't even know who I am. Doesn't affect them at all. But what it does do is it sends that ripple of negativity out from me that affects all of you. It affects anybody near me where I go, you know, what a stupid jerk, you know, and then people get affected around me. Sometimes they'll agree with me and go, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then we feel kind of righteously moral that we're doing this thing, but all it does is send those ripples out onto the planet. Doesn't really benefit. So granted, you might have certain people you know and you'll discuss sometimes and you need to get it out once in a while. Like, I can't believe, oh my God, it's so horrifying what's happening to these poor people. And of course we do that once in a while. But how much do you want it to go out? And just be careful about the fueling of more delusion in your heart and mind, as opposed to, what if I try to view some of these people who are big in the world, what if I try to view them with a more compassionate approach? It's a challenge. That's why we reach for Lojong. Lojong takes on a bigger challenge, you know, much bigger than like self-compassion techniques. And Lojong's really like, okay, suffering exists in our realm. Wow, is this big? Okay, let me use it to take refuge. Let me use it to build my renunciation, okay? And here's a third one. Let me use it to dispel arrogance and pride that some of us suffer. That's our delusion, arrogance and pride. So when you suffer, okay, in any way boy, is it humbling. Boy, does it build humility. There's a question here. But am I making sense? Do you understand? See, now this is a big, difficult exercise to build compassion in the face of some of those big characters. Okay, but check in your own mind. When you build the hatred and you attack them verbally, I mean, just in your own world, and you go this, how do you feel? How does that feel? How does that feel versus, wow, these people are creating so much suffering, not only for all the beings around them, all the people they've killed, but what about for themselves? Like, wow, because they're going to end up with the bomb building falling on their heads in some future system. That's what it gets. That's with understanding of karma, that's where it gets you. Please.
So I was thinking what you're saying. On our drive here, we passed a Tesla dealership, and there were a bunch of protesters in front of it with signs and everything. And we were smiling at it. Anyway, so then I'm thinking, oh gosh, I should have done that. I remember reading somewhere where Shantideva wrote, there's compassion and there's great compassion, and something about especially having compassion for those, like you mentioned, Putin and Netanyahu and Trump, who've done horrible things. But how do we handle and look at things like advocacy and justice and protest, bringing voice to those who are voiceless, right? Or who's had their voice taken away from them. Mm-hmm. How do we feel compassion, right, for those who have created the voicelessness, right, or the harm, and yet still advocate for, so I'm trying to
I'll talk about engaged Buddhism for a moment, engaged Buddhism advocacy. So again, and I've talked about some of this in here before, everyone, it's a personal, individual decision of how you want to get involved, okay? So there's people I know that complain all the time and do not participate. I find that tiring, personally. I'm tired of the want. Then figure out, and it's very individual how you want to get involved. Figure out what you'd like to do. Like, I'm disagreeing with this, and this is really big, and wow, this is a lot. There's so many things you can do, and it's very individual. There's some people I know that say, I want to get more involved in Kadampa Center, okay? Or I'm going to take this course. I'm going to sign up for the online thing. I'm coming to the weekend retreat. I'm going to give money to this. And then you want to expand beyond, and you go, I want to do a little bit something bigger than the center and bigger than my home life. So another thing is, I know people living with their kids and their families, and they live super ethically with their families regarding, teaching the kids not to lie and how they do their recycling, and even taking the kids to volunteer activities at soup kitchens and the recycling plant and showing them where the dump is and how this works, and going to visit people in the old folks home. So they're very active with their kids. My sister did that a lot with her kids, and her kids are big volunteers now in their 30s. There's always some aspect of their life that they're giving money or they're helping like that, because it was just something that they did. So they saw their parents do it, their parents took them. It's a personal decision. So there's some families that very much, I have a friend that slowly, in her small community, outside Philadelphia, it was somewhat a conservative community, started slowly community organizing, whatever, and finally, after some years, they no longer use plastic bags in that community from her efforts with a group of people, but working skillfully, harmoniously, compassionately with the shop owners, with the major grocery stores. Like it wasn't like, you jerk, you're stupid using plastic bags. It was like, hey, do you understand about the bags, and here's what happens, and can we meet with, we have a committee, and we're this, and we're from this school, and it took time to organize and find the right people to meet with and constructively, so we have to have the patience with this process. Okay, there's people that go to marches. Okay, I happen to contact representatives in Congress. I used to work in politics. So again, there's different ways to contact online now. You can phone the offices. And I know that what they do is every issue that comes up, somebody keeps tabs in that office of how many people called about abortion rights, how many people called about the Middle East, how many people voted yes on, and they keep tabs, and the people deal with what their constituents most were interested in. We're interested in doing this, and they really do look at that to some degree. So the other thing is you can go to a march, you can go to a protest, you can make a sign. I make signs, I have my sign, and the signs get more attention, but what's your motivation for going? My motivation is not anger and hatred and division. My motivation is love and connection and compassion. And I can go to a march like that. And I can go to a march where people are screaming about this or that. I don't scream about that. I don't want to lead any negative chants. But I'm going to show up and be a number and be counted if I feel that that issue is important to me. And, I can volunteer for certain things. You could also, we were packing bags at one point for Ukraine refugees that came. You can give money to certain organizations. But again, check the organization. Some of them, all the money goes to the CEO's big bonus. I'm not interested in those organizations. There's other organizations so there's a lot of ways that you can impact things. And, but again, having done a lot of the first external work only, I found that if I didn't work on some internal mechanism, it was fueled by my frustration and rage and fear and things like that. But then when I got into the Dharma, I realized it really needs to come from a good place, and let that fuel the external work that I choose to do. So there's many, many different things we can do. People even volunteering at pet shelters and helping, there's just an enormous, so what was interesting on a funny note was, I used to have we had a senator from Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey, who I disagreed with regularly, and they had a protest thing you could go on Tuesdays. It was called Tuesdays for Toomey, and we would protest outside his office in downtown Philadelphia. So I went with some friends, and I made a sign one day. It was all about Obamacare. He was trying to dismantle, and there was a vote, and so I had some sign, down with WealthCare, we need healthcare, or something like that. And then what happens, because I had a sign, it was winter, it was very cold, and we were along a busy street in front of his office with the signs, and people took photos, and it was on the news, but that wasn't my focus at all. But whatever it was, so some of these photos that professional photographers sell, was picked up by the BBC, the photo of me with my sign. And I had no idea. It had nothing to do with me, but they took a photo. And so then the Obamacare thing came up about a year later, 6 months later, and it was the top story in the BBC with my photo. When I went on my phone, and so suddenly I started to get messages from people saying, is this you? And all you see is my head above my photo with my hat on, with my Smurf hat, as my brother-in-law calls it. It was cold, but there was my sign, and so it just happened to be featured because it was a big thing about Obamacare things, and I was hysterical that, and I went, yes, that is me. Like, I remember that photo the photo was like 2 years old, but they popped it up. So again, so I go, but, and I go when I can, and also be careful, because sometimes I'm in other countries wanting to go to a protest, and you do have to be careful if you're not a citizen of that country, what you're protesting. Like in India once, it wasn't safe or Nepal to be really protesting something that I felt just in case, because I wasn't a citizen there. So you have to understand the laws of that country if you're going to do that as well. But that would just be my feeling about there's a lot of things, are you a member, let's say, are you a member of the ACLU? Is that something you choose to join? There's other advocacy organizations, and you can get on certain lists. Like I have certain lists on my phone when I'm local to my area in Philadelphia, even my local county, and we'll have meetings in front of the courthouse, and I go because it's convenient and I can get there. Or I may choose to go to downtown Philadelphia. One day I live a little further from that, but I may want to go, and I might get a couple friends to go with me or something. So I don't know if that helps to like that. But think about the motivation again, and then maybe I can a little bit think about emptiness when I'm there, and certainly bring a bodhicitta motivation to what I'm doing, to keep it like fresh and buoyant in my mind. Yeah, Andre.
Oh yeah, with our group during lunch, we were talking about politics, and of course we find a lot of fault, right? And I remember, and we were going on about the fault, and I remember what Rabina said. She said that it's okay to find fault, but then you have to ask, the next question has to be, what can I do about it?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's like,
That's right.
yeah, these things are happening. People are suffering. People are scared. And these people, out of ignorance, they're causing this chaos and stuff like that. We can talk about that and talk about that and talk about that, but then what are we going to do about it? I think about what can we do about it?
That's
if we can
right.
do something, then do something,
Yep.
And so, yeah, volunteer,
That's right.
I'm retired, so I find time that I can volunteer for organizations.
That's right.
And I feel better because I'm doing something,
Yeah.
and not just complaining and talking about
Yeah,
it.
and that's the thing is, so you ask yourself and I do this, what can I do about it? And bing, 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 these are the steps. What I choosing, like I know some friends that go, no, I don't do the marches, I'm not interested. Okay, fair enough. I know friends that write letters. They get, with the election, people were having postcard writing parties. They wanted to, great, that's what they felt that they could do. They invited people into the living room, and they had a group of people, and here's where we're going to go. And I know people that worked polls. They felt that was something they wanted to do. So you figure out what works for you that is reasonable. And then there's some things you can't do anything about. There's some things you can't, and then can you let it go? And then drive it into your practice. So let it deepen your renunciation of giving up the stuff that keeps you from Dharma practice. Give up the stuff that keeps you suffering. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to stop there, but thank you for all the comments. So hold any more questions. If you have questions online too, tomorrow we're back. So there is a session in the morning that's a more general thing for the Sunday morning Dharma. That is at 10 o'clock?
10:30.
10:30.
Till noon.
So you can join that, but then we're going to start again at
1:30 to 4.
1:30 to 4. Okay, so 1:30 to 4, we will finish. We're going to do also talk about Tonglen meditation and continue some of the Lojong exercises. The text is so profound, you wouldn't believe on another level. What I'd like to do is, again, so overnight, you have how you wake up in the morning. Remember that? How we set up the morning. Can you do some meditation in the morning and think about, some of you are already doing it, I understand. But if you're not, can you get a little bit going? Think about what we're talking about today. Think about some of these, like how's your renunciation? How is your refuge, right? Regarding if pride and arrogance is one of your things, when has suffering come in and just leveled that right off? Chops your head right off, and suddenly you're like, wow, I'm just like everybody else here, Suffering really, it's very powerful when we have those, what we call those intricate nights of the soul, I would say, where we're really down on our knees, have been some incredibly powerful times for me. I don't like it and I'm uncomfortable in those spaces, but what I have gleaned from that, what I've learned, incredible and so humbling, so humbling. So let's think about those exercises as well. Don't forget about the self-compassion exercises, mindfulness, shared humanity, loving kindness, and how can you balance the stories of the negative aspects of yourself, negative self-speak, versus some reasonable positive self-speak? What needs to be balanced, okay? So we have a lot of things to think about. I would like to dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from our time together. Thank you so much for showing up, for being here, and your great questions. And thank you for your meditation. And may we invest it and dedicate it to our being able to have better and better concentration, to be able to set ourselves up for better meditative stabilization sessions, analytical meditation on the Lam Rim, to be able to delve into the Lam Rim and be able to use that on our path to enlightenment so we can benefit all living beings. May we dedicate to all the suffering beings on the planet to be free of that suffering immediately, completely. For all those who have recently passed away, Venerable Ingrid, Harold, may they immediately take a precious human rebirth to get enlightened, to benefit all. And may all the minds of the leaders of totalitarian regimes be turned immediately to bodhicitta and emptiness. And for the long lives of our teachers, and may Lama Zopa Rinpoche return to us as quickly as possible in the most optimal rebirth. So can we read our dedication prayers, please? Thank you.
So if you're in the Gampa, turn to page 246 in the Gold Prayer Book. This is Shanti Deva's dedication verses.
So this we send out to the universe, a beautiful prayer.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, page 244 in the Gold Prayer Book. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then we'll go to the inside back cover and do the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang Father and Sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth, the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.